Hey, what's up? Useless Fodder here. So today I'm going to show you how to make a mission in Arma Reforger. The game just came out a couple days ago. They just released the tools. We're all digging through them trying to figure out how to make cool things. I'm going to show you how to make a mission. Now I'm going to make a co-op mission that you can play with your friends on a server. I'm going to show you every step of the way. It's a little bit complicated. It's very different from what we had with Arma 3 and the Eden editor. But trust me, if you follow through in this guide, you will make this mission and it'll be awesome. Now, this could be a little bit of a longer video, but if you look over here on the left side, you're gonna be able to see that these are all the different chapters, and those will correspond with down below the chapters I actually put in this video. So feel free to jump between them. If you know something already, jump to the next part. And of course, you can always stop, pause it, go back, and come back another time if you need it. Don't get overwhelmed, take breaks. We're gonna get there. I promise you guys will make a mission by the end of this. Also, make note that everything that we do in this video is going to be actually sent out into the workshop. So you can download this exact mission from the workshop and play it. Also, I wanna note that everything we're making today will be available in the link down below in the description, including some copy and pasting stuff that you're gonna want rather than having to manually hand type it from what you see on the screen. Also, the entire file that we create will be downloadable from there. So you can actually just pull it straight into the editor and of course see what I've done already, so you can compare it when you actually make your own mission, or of course you just follow along. Whatever you want to do works best for you. Anyway, let's get right to it. Okay, to start out with, we're gonna have to go load the Arma Reforger tools, also called the Reforger Workbench or the Enfusion Workbench. So that's actually a separate tool. It's not the actual game itself. It's a separate tool that you'll have to go download in Steam to be able to make these missions. Okay, so to do that, we're just gonna go open up Steam. We're gonna go to our library. We're gonna scroll down until we find Arma Reforger right here. And you should see Arma Reforger tools 2 down from that. If you don't see Arma Reforger tools, go ahead and make sure this checkbox right here, tools, is clicked. Otherwise you won't be able to see it. If it's just games, you won't see it. Gotta make sure it's there. Install that and go ahead and launch it. Next up, you'll get this little window. Yours might not have any blocks in it. Obviously, I've been working on mods already. I've already created Operation Equine Lightning. It's available in the workshop right now. But all we're gonna do first is we're gonna go ahead and click Create New. That's going to start your brand new project. Now, the Enfusion tools here are not just for missions. They're literally for everything. They're for creating new maps, creating mods, creating anything you can imagine. It's all created in this tool set. So you're going to see a lot of extra stuff that you don't need along the way. Trying to get too confused, really focus in on the stuff that I'm pointing you to, and we'll get there. So we're going to name our new project. We're going to call this Reforger Co-op Tutorial. Okay, call it whatever you want, and then go ahead and put it in whatever location you want. I suggest putting it somewhere that's not actually in the My Games Arma Reforger add-ons. For some reason, I have a hard time exporting it as of the time of this video, which is the 21st of May. It might have fixed it by then. What I've been doing is just making a new folder in downloads. So dependencies, you don't want to put any dependencies right in here. Just make sure Arma Reforger on the bottom is checked and click OK. Okay, after it loads up, you'll be faced with the Enfusion Workbench main tool. Now, like I said, this is going to have all sorts of different editors and things like that that are available, but focus in on this. First, we're going to go to here in the top left in the resource browser. We're going to go to Arma Reforger. We're going to drop down the list here, go down to Worlds. Once we select Worlds, we're going to do the drop down here. We're going to click Eden. That's going to be the main world. That's Everon. That's the world there. And we're going to double click eden.ent. What that's going to do is going to open up the world editor with Everon already default selected. Now, we're not going to edit Everon, right? Because that would be if we want to make a new map based on Everon, we could do that. What we are going to do, however, is make a mission on Everon, so we have to load that world file first. Think like in Arma 3 when you went and selected the world. That's basically what we're doing. So once it loads up, it might show you at the airport, or it might show you in the middle of the water. If it does show you in the middle of the water, I'm going to show you exactly how to fix it. Okay, so if you have a view like this, where it's just water sitting around, have no fear. Go over here to the left side, it says Eden, and then the layer default. Open up default, click anything, and go ahead and hit F. What that's going to do is that's going to find that on the map. Oh, sorry, I'm a little fast scroll zoom in. Like I selected the airport, so now it just brought me to the airport. Where you were at was at 000 default position, which is of course in the water because Everon's an island. But once we're here, we're going to be able to start making our mission. What we're going to do is we're going to create a new world. I don't really know how to explain it other than to say Eden itself is a world, and you can click anything and move it if you want within the world, like I'm moving this around. We don't want to have anything to do with that. We're going to create a separate world that's a sub-world of this. It makes sense if you understand the game development programming thing, but for us, let's just say we're making a new world where all our mission stuff's going to live. So let me undo that. I'm going to go up. If you ever find yourself here where it's like you're in a huge scroll wheel, just select something and hit left arrow key, and I'll take you to the top, and left arrow key and make it small again. Same thing if you want to go right arrow key, right arrow key, right arrow key. Same sort of thing. So what we do first is we're going to go up here into the very top left, create new world. Click that. If we create a new base scene, what that means is we're going to make a whole new world from scratch. We don't want to do that. We want to make it based on Eden. So we're going to do sub scene of our current world, aka keep everything that's on there now and then just add stuff on top of it. So sub scene of current world, click OK. It's going to create a sub scene, and you're going to see here on the left side, it's going to drop a whole new world icon for us. We're going to go ahead and select that and make it active. Okay, so as you see, we're here in the middle of the water again, and we're on our unnamed world. To get out of here, like I said before, just drop this default down, select airfield, hit F, and here we are back at the airport, all happy again. We'll make that small and put that away. Now, here's a little tip that's going to make it a little bit easier so you don't accidentally grab stuff and start moving it around. Go ahead and right click on default here and lock it in the top left under Eden. That way we can't change anything in the base world. Now, let's go to our unnamed world. First thing we want to do is we want to save this unnamed world to a new name. So we're going to go File, Save World As, and then we're going to come here. Now, we'll notice first that we have this big Arma Reforger stuff that we already dropped down. We cannot save to that. If you try to save to this world thing, it's going to actually crash out on you. So we're going to make that small, and we're going to save within a Reforger co-op tutorial. But right now, we don't actually have any files within our Reforger co-op tutorial mod. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to click Cancel. We're going to go down to the bottom, go to our Enfusion Workbench main screen. On the left side, make this all small and select Reforger co-op tutorial. And down below, we're going to hit Create New Folder, and we're going to name this new folder Worlds. So now that we have a Worlds folder, we can go back into our world editor, go ahead and hit File, Save World As, Reforger Co-op Tutorial Worlds, and then we're going to save it Tutorial World. Save it wherever you want. There we go, cool. Now we have a tutorial world. That's a good start. Now let's talk about what layers are. So the way that this works is that everything we create is going to be here in this left side hierarchy window. Now it's going to get really confusing really fast as we add entities into the world. So we're going to make sure that we're very careful about how we organize things so we can find things again. You notice that we start with one layer called default. I'm going to go ahead and create a new layer, and that layer we're going to call game mode, and you'll see why in a second. I'm also going to create a new layer that's for managers. And then lastly, a new layer that's for spawns. Okay. And then I'm going to want to delete this default here in a second. But before I can do that, I have to make another one active. When you make a layer active, everything you put on the world is going to go directly into that layer. So I'm going to right click game mode, set as active. I'm going to then delete my default one just because I don't need that. Now we're prepared to start putting stuff in the world. We're already about a third of the way to creating our new mission. Pretty fast, right? Okay, so with game mode active, I'm going to go select my AO where I want my exact mission to be. So let's go find something fun. Okay, so here I am. I was flying around. I saw a raccoon rock, and I don't know why that really tickled me. So let's make this a mission where our team, the US team, is attacking Gory. We have to go clear out enemies in Gory, and once we clear out the enemies there, we'll be successful in our mission. So this is our AO that we're going to work with. So the first thing we should put down are some things that teach the game kind of how to work. So different than Eden Editor is that in Enfusion, we can tweak every last little bit of the engine and how it actually runs. So there's all these prefabs, they call them, that we're going to bring in that are basically stuff that were already put in the game to give it things like how the game rules work, how the AI spawns, how the AI perceives you, what the players' teams they can be on, that sort of thing. Even down to defining brand new factions. You don't have to be US and USSR. You could be red team versus blue team if you wanted to. That's all available within the Enfusion engine. Now we're just scratching the surface here, having the game just released a couple days ago, but you'll be able to see pretty quickly how we can really change a lot of stuff and get ourselves in trouble a little bit, but also be very creative and create things to new heights that we never could in Arma 3. Okay, so the first module we're going to want to put down is going to be the game mode module. Now, a lot of the stuff that we're going to be pulling in are prefabs. What prefabs mean is that we're not taking the most basic version of that entity. We're taking one that the developers have already added some stuff to make them more useful for them and, of course, by extension for us. So, for instance, on this prefab, we're going to pull a game mode plane that was already created. Now, you could go and create all this from scratch. Once you get good enough, feel free to do that. We're going to be working with pretty much exclusively prefabs today. So to do that, all the stuff that we're going to bring in with our prefabs is down here in this resource browser. So if we want to go down, we can always search everything, which makes it really handy, and you'll see me doing that for a lot of the video. But for right now, I want to kind of show you how to navigate to things. So here we are in Arma Reforger. We want to go down to our prefabs tab here, or folder, I should say. Once we select prefabs, we can go down and we could find MP for multiplayer. If we go down here, we can find modes. Now, anything I select here will open up both folders and the actual entities that are in that folder on the right side. We want to drill down one more time and go down to plane. We're going to bring a game mode plane into here. You can see that there's already editor, which is basically the game master mode. There's deathmatch and team deathmatch modes already have their own game modes in here with all sorts of different rules for it. We're just going to do game mode plane for now though. So to add that prefab into the world, we're going to click. We're literally just going to drag it right into the world. So now that we've dragged it into the world, you'll see that there is this little icon here. We can move it in any direction we want. Nothing we do to this is really going to matter here within the screen, but there it is floating in the world. And you notice that over here on the left side in our hierarchy, we now have a game mode plane 1 under the game modes layer. Now, there's a new window that we got to talk about. Here on the right side is the properties tab. And the properties tab is where we're going to edit most of the stuff to make our game work the way that we want it to. For right now, though, we don't have to do anything, okay? And I'm not going to go through all of this. That'll come in a more advanced tutorial later. I will only show you the things that we need to change here to make this mission work, or things that are very simple that you can change to edit your stuff somewhat. Every single thing here, though, can be changed if you want to. And remember when I said that we were on prefabs? Well, if you look at this SCR base game mode at the top, that would be what we would normally get if we just didn't grab a prefab and only grabbed the game mode entity. But because we grabbed a prefab, it's already preloaded with all these components like how to automatically handle respawns, how there's a game over screen, if there's a voting in there, saving and loading. All these components are already pre-built for us and dragged in here. That's why we're using prefabs and not using just basic entities. Okay, so moving on, there's more than just the game mode that we're gonna have to bring in here. We have to bring in some managers. So whereas the game mode defines the basic idea of how the game's going to work, the managers will manage all the individual sort of aspects of that overall game mode. So we're going to put down first is the faction manager, and that's a perfect example of that. The faction manager manages which factions there are, what flags they have, are they playable, things like that. So to do that, we're going to go back down here in our resource browser. We're going to click on managers. We're going to click on factions. And there's already 4 basic kinds: base, editor, FFA, USX, USSR. We're going to grab this bottom one. We're going to drag it right into the world to create another entity. And oh no, look, we accidentally had it here on the left side still in our game mode active. If you accidentally drag something into the wrong layer, you can just click and drag it down to the correct layer over here. Intentional mistake over. We can right click this and set it as active. And now anything else we drag into the world will all be in this managers tab. And where did my stuff go? Well, you can always, if you remember the area, highlight to select things, or of course you can click them on the left side in the hierarchy to highlight them. So now that we've selected faction manager, I want to show you some of the first components and properties that we can change over here on the right side. So transformation is basically where something is and how it's scaled. General has a bunch of flags that are for advanced users. I wouldn't worry about it too much. Script is something we'll get to later, how we can actually add scripts to each one of these things. But for this one, we're not going to do any of that. We're going to come down to this unsorted, and you'll be able to see very quickly how a lot of this works. Now, I'm going to go ahead and remove my head so you can see exactly what we're looking at here. Okay, so now that I'm gone, you can see here along the right side, there are several bits of information. There's factions. You'll see that as 2 listed. If I were to hit plus, it would create an additional faction down below if we wanted to, but we don't want to create another faction. We want to leave it at 2. And then it has this SCR faction. That's a type of faction that's already pre-built in it. So you see right now there's SCR faction 1, SCR faction 2. And as you can tell, one of them is a US faction with a US flag. The other one is a USSR faction, and it has a USSR flag that for some reason wasn't loading, but that's what it looks like right there. So these are our 2 factions. Now we only want one of them to be playable, the US. So we're going to go down here and we're going to select is playable and take that off. And then we're going to say can change factions player or playable? No, we're not going to change any of that. So there we go. We made our first change. In the faction manager, it's added a US faction and a USSR faction. Now, if I wanted to rename these, give them new flags. I could do whatever I want to here. It doesn't just have to be East versus West. It can be US versus USSR. It can be Rebels versus Imperials. It can be whatever we want over here. That's the power of this editor versus what we had before. We're not forced into one thing. Okay, I'm back for now. So we have some more managers that we're gonna have to put down. So if we select our managers tab, we have loadouts is another one. So loadout manager is just like it sounds. It's gonna manage those pre-built loadouts that already exist. I'm gonna grab the US x USSR, drag it into the world, and put it down there. It's gonna go into our managers tab here on the left, and it's gonna show over here what loadouts are currently already built. There's gonna be 10 pre-built loadouts. You can build your own loadouts later. We're gonna use the default loadouts that come with the game. So now we've got loadouts for the US and USSR already done. So we go back to our managers tab, and we're gonna grab this garbage manager. Now this isn't super important for right now, but later on, we're gonna make sure that we have this, and they'll just basically delete bodies and extra entities that we don't need. It's gonna help keep things straight. Okay, so now that we have that manager down, we're gonna start adding some stuff for the AI. Now these are absolutely essential if you wanna run co-op or any AI stuff. If you are just running a PvP op, you don't necessarily have to add these, but they don't hurt anything to add in there, so I would do that. So we go here and actually search. We're gonna search for AI. There's gonna be all sorts of different things that have AI currently in it. We wanna drill down a little bit more, and we wanna select this AI folder. It's gonna have all sorts of AI stuff in it. We're gonna find AI world.et. The SCR is a prefab that's already been built. We're going to drag that into our world as well, and that's going to be under the managers. And so you can see that we have SCR AI world now here on the right side. What that's going to do is it's going to basically allow the AI to function at all. This nav mesh world component will basically load a nav mesh, aka the areas that the AI can run on in the world. And it's going to have these AI settings, basically what they can do and what they can't do. But we shouldn't have to make any changes here. But if you want to, you can change what AI formations they have available, how many AI you can load, all stuff like that. We're going to leave it just bog standard from this prefab SCR AI world. Now, the AI at the very beginning cannot perceive anything, so they can't actually see to do stuff, and they can't do any hit reg. There's no hit registration on. So there's two more things that we have to pull in here. So we're going to go ahead and search perception, select our prefabs, we're going to grab the perception manager. Basically, that's how the AI will see. I'm not going to go through it, but there's all sorts of stuff that you can add or take away from for them. Like you could take away their ability to climb ladders or see ladders at all. We're just going to leave that as is. And then the other one that we have to do is hit reg. And drag the hit reg manager. Okay, so now that we've configured all of our basic managers, there's going to be a couple more that we're going to have to add in at the end of this to complete the map. That's going to be stuff like the cool lighting and how to chat and stuff like that, but we'll do that at the end. Let's get you guys spawning on the map. The way that we're going to do that is we're going to put spawn points on the map. Now that we've set up the game mode, set up the factions, should be able to spawn right in. So what we're going to do is we're going to go to the left side, we're going to right click our spawns layer that we did before. We're going to go down to our resource browser and search spawn. Okay, once we search that, we go down here to prefabs. We're going to scroll until we find spawn point US and drag it into the world. Now, this has created a spawn point for the US side, which is the only playable one. So if we start this, it should just spawn us right there. Now, for some reason, there's a weird bug in the tutorial that if you don't rename this spawn point, sometimes it puts you out in the middle of the ocean. But I'm going to see if it works the first time anyway. Sometimes it does, sometimes it doesn't. So to actually go and test your map, and you're going to be doing this a lot, to actually hop into game mode, you can go to here to the top left, this little green triangle play button. We're going to click that, and it's going to load us into the game. Now, it's a small chance we might end up floating in the water, and there's a small chance we might standing in a field. Hopefully we'll stay in a field today and it'll be nice. And here we are standing in a beautiful field in this beautiful engine. I hit M, I got a map. I pull up, I should have a weapon. Yep, looks like I'm a marksman. I didn't define my class, so it just gave me a random one. And you notice that rather than giving us that spawn menu, we instantly spawned right into the world, right? Well, let's go fix that so people actually have the spawn menu and they can choose their spawn point. Because right now it's just automatic respawn like in deathmatch mode, and that's not what we're looking for. So to get out of this mode, we just hit the escape button and we'll head back right to edit mode, they call it, which is basically back into the editor. Okay, so here we are back in the editor. We are going to rename that spawn point so we don't have any issues again. We're going to do that by going over here to the hierarchy, right-clicking it, and going to rename. You can also hit F2 as the shortcut if you're a shortcut kind of guy. We're going to call this US Field Spawn. That's just a name for the entity within here. The actual name of the spawn point is over here on the right side in this object properties. We're going to change just US Field Spawn. Cool. So now on the map, it'll show that. But we have to actually get the game to be set up for that map spawn. Remember how I said the game mode has all sorts of stuff like how to respawn? Well, the plain game mode for some reason starts out with the automatic respawn components. So we're gonna go actually change that so that we get that cool little menu. So to do that, we're gonna go up here to game mode plain. We're gonna select it. And over here on the right side, here are all of the components that we looked at before. You see that there's an automatic respawn handler component here? That's what's actually spawning right now alongside the respawn system component. Let's change that. Okay, so what we're gonna do is we're gonna actually edit the prefab that we pulled in. Remember how I said prefabs are just something that the devs created for their own use to do something? Well, it doesn't exactly work for us. So we're gonna edit the prefab to give it different components that will make it function differently. Okay, so to do that, we're gonna go down here to the bottom where it says add components. A little bit different than using the resource browser. By clicking add component, it will bring up all sorts of components. Now these components you could think of as smaller chunks that will only fit inside your actual entities that you have for your prefab. So inside the SCR base game mode entity, okay? You can't just pull a component out into the world because it only functions when it's actually sitting inside an entity. It has to actually sit inside one. So that's why it's a separate window. We're just gonna search respawn. And then what we're gonna select is the respawn menu handler component. Scroll down here, and we're going to click that. Okay, so respawn menu handler component, basically that's going to bring up that respawn menu that you know and love. So there's a problem. We already have an actual component that's handling our respawn. It's this automatic respawn handler component. Now, because it's part of the prefab, we can't just delete it, but what we can do is we can go ahead and click this enabled, and that will disable that particular component. It's not gonna be functioning. Now we have the respawn menu handler component. It's going to go ahead and work with that. But there's one other component that we need to have here. So we're going to go ahead and click add component, search respawn. We're going to choose the respawn timer component. Now that's basically how long do you have to wait to respawn. And we're going to set this to 5 seconds. Okay, so now that we have our respawn menu handler, respawn system component, and respawn timer component, when we go to respawn, it should give us a briefing menu. We're clicking the button. We're going to go ahead and check it out. Okay, and here we are, just like you know and love. Select US Army, continue. Select this, and we can select our US field spawn. Click deploy. Look at us. We're already making a mission. We're able to select our spawns. We can add multiple spawns throughout the world. We can do all sorts of stuff. I've given you everything you need to know just how to get your players down on the world. So what's the next step? What's the next thing that we need? Well, of course, it's going to be an AO to attack and enemies to fight. So let's go on and put those down too. Okay, so here we are back in the world. We're going to create a new layer by right-clicking our tutorial world and hit create layer. And we're going to call this area of ops. You don't have to name it that way. You can name it however you want. That's what I'm going to do. That's going to be all the stuff that I physically put down versus the AI, which will be a separate layer. But while I'm sitting here, I'm seeing a lot of stars. A lot of things have been updated. Let's make sure we go ahead and save our world. Okay, so our world's been saved. Now we're going to go look and see. Sorry, man, I'm zooming around really fast. If you want to slow down your zoom, you can use the scroll wheel to go forward or backwards while holding right click, and that will speed up or slow down your zoom. You can also do it with this camera tab here if you want to be very, very precise. So right now we've got this little farm. This is going to be the area that we're going to attack. It's got a little lake. It's kind of cool. So what can we do to spice up a farm? Well, maybe let's add some sandbag walls perhaps. So to do that, let's go ahead and go search scripts. We're going to go sandbag. Now, you're going to want to click on this assets thing and starts pulling stuff in. That is a bad idea because once again, there are entities that already exist, like say the object that looks like a sandbag wall, and there are prefabs that already have everything that it needs on it. Most notably, and this is one that took me a little bit to figure out, the default assets don't actually stop the enemy from shooting through them. It doesn't stop bullets, and it doesn't stop their vision. So let's shoot through anything you put there. So we want to use the prefab that already has the components in there to make the AI not be able to see it and to be able to actually stop bullets. So we're going to click prefabs. We're going to scroll down until we find sandbag long burlap. Okay? And we're going to go down here and we're going to create a little sandbag wall. Let's go maybe right here next to the lake, okay? So they're going to be prepared for an attack. We're going to go sandbag long burlap and drag into the world, and look at us. Now we have the sandbag wall. We can grab it and move it around. Notably, sometimes it'll start hovering above the ground. If you ever want to just snap it to the ground, hit Control and hit the down arrow key, and I'll snap it right to the ground. No problem there. And of course, if you do that, and now it's underneath the world, same thing, Control down arrow key, and I'll snap it there. Now, another thing that you're going to want to do is you're going to want to rotate it. You can do that with the rotation tool that's up here, or if you press E on your keyboard, it'll go to that. You can think of it as Q, W, E, R for these tools that are up here, anytime you want to do that, because we could scale this up too, of course. Like that's all possible as well, but we don't want to do that. Control Z, we're gonna go to the rotate tool, we're gonna rotate it this way. Now that's just one way that you can build. You don't necessarily have to just use small sandbags, because they've already done prefabs that have a bunch of cool barricades. So why don't we do a sandbag barricade here? Yeah, see, that looks pretty good. It's got a bunch of sandbags already integrated. It's got the dirt underneath it that makes it look a little nicer. It's got this little light object. So this is actually, I think, a better prefab for what we want to do. And you'll notice over here when we look at the hierarchy, here's our long burlap thing that we put in there before. And then here's the barricade. And you notice it has a bunch of sub-entities underneath it. That's because they made a prefab where they basically made something cool. Think of like a composition in the old Arma. They did that and they put it right in there. So make sure that we're selecting this top level one when we want to move it around. So once again, hitting W, we can move it around, hit Control down to sync the world. Let me get rid of this one. And then I'm going to actually grab this guy. Oh, no, we put it in the spawns area. We want to go up here to Area of Ops. We want to right click to set it as active. So now that we did that, we're going to Control C on that and then hit Control V. And look, it's another one. And we can go ahead and rotate that like this if we want to. Maybe you want to put it kind of here, bring it up a little bit. There we go. That looks like a nice little fighting position for them. They can defend everything facing that way. And then, of course, we could set up secondary lines. We could set up all sorts of stuff. I'm going to add a couple more things to the AO just to make it a little more interesting. Okay, cool. So we added a couple more interesting features. We put this little bunker area here to defend the road going by. We put this strong point in the middle here that's going to kind of protect them from anyone coming from that way. And then there's a little dug-in point that looks down the road there that soldiers can kind of take cover in. I kind of made it match the terrain utilizing this little red bar here to turn it. Okay, cool. That's our area of ops. We set up some cool defensive barriers just using these prefabs that are already in there. Of course, you can build your own compositions. You can save those as prefabs. We'll go over that in another video. But now our area of operations is set up. Let's go ahead and create the AI layer. We're actually going to put our AI. So we're going to call this AI. We're going to right click that and set as active. Two things to note about this editor versus what you had before. First off, adding individual soldiers does not automatically make a group for them. And without a group, soldiers can't function. So we're going to have to basically make the groups first. We're just going to use the prefab groups that are already created. You've seen them if you've been playing the game already. You kind of know how they work. If you want to create separate groups and attach them to AI yourself, you are totally welcome to do that. I'm not going to show you how to do this in here. Maybe in a future video, let me know down below if that would be helpful to you. Secondly, those groups are not just going to be something where once you put them down, you right click somewhere and it makes a waypoint. No, you have to create the waypoints as separate entities and then assign them to the groups. In fact, same waypoints can be shared by multiple groups. You can think of a waypoint as sort of a point in space that when the group gets it, tells it to do something, but it's not specific to the group. It is an object that exists in the world. So let's go ahead and put in a couple groups and then we'll put in some waypoints and I'll show you how to basically make this a more interesting battle for your players. So here we are at our little bunker in the middle of this AO. And like I said, we're going to use the prefab groups. So we're going to go down to our resource browser down here. We're going to go prefabs, open it up, scroll down and go to groups and select Op4. And you'll see there's a number of groups here. You're going to want to go to the AI tab and start grabbing stuff there. Do not do that. You do not want to do that unless you want to set up your own groups or put down individual soldiers and attach them to groups. No, we're going to use the basic groups that are already in there. There's plenty of different types and we'll modify them a little bit and I'll show you how to do that. So for this group here, let's go ahead and make a machine gun team. We'll put this right here. It'll be pretty powerful. So like I said, I clicked and dragged it right into the world and you can see there's two enemy soldiers here from USSR. That's because I chose the Op4. If I chose Ind4 or I chose Blue4, it'd be different, but I chose USSR. And this is an entity just like any other entity we saw. It might be drawing these two guys, but it's just showing you where they're going to spawn in the world. So let's go ahead and move them to a point that kind of makes sense utilizing the same tools we did before. Move that there. We're going to turn them a little bit so that they're looking up there. And you'll notice that one guy is our MG right there, and this guy's our assistant gunner here. When I select this on the left here, this machine gun team, which is an object that will spawn these two individuals, you'll see here on the right side we have our base entity and then a bunch of configurable stuff in it. We're not going to configure anything here except for this base component. If we scroll down here, you can see that the group belongs to faction USSR. I could change that if I want to. I could put them on US and they would suddenly function as though they were on US. It's going to delete this group when there's no more individuals left in it. And they're going to see these unit prefab slots. So this is a way that you can edit these groups to be bigger or smaller based upon what you want. So we have one MG and we have this other guy who is an assistant machine gunner. I want to add a third unit to this that's another MG. So we're going to go ahead and hit the plus sign here. It's going to increase the size. So you see how this said 2, I hit plus and now it says 3, and then it gave more options down below. And of course you can see that this has a little thing, so you know this is subordinate to the unit prefab slot. But you notice that this is currently empty. If I click these 2 dots, I'm sorry, this is starting to get behind my head. Let me go ahead and remove my head here. If I click these 2 dots here, it's going to open up this browser right here in the middle. So this is going to let us actually go down and select the types of AI that currently exist. So we're going to go Arma Reforger, Prefabs, Characters, Factions, Op4, USSR Army, and here's all our different options. So we're going to go and we're going to put another MG in this group. We click OK, and now you'll see there's a third MG with these gentlemen. Of course, you can move these guys around if you want. So now it's MG1, MG2, and then this third guy. That might be a little bit better. And we're going to go ahead and we're going to kind of mess around with them again, put them in their cover here, so that they are looking the correct direction. And now we've edited that machine gun team to have one additional guy. They're going to snap to terrain. They're going to spawn immediately, meaning right when it stops. You can have to where it spawns individual members on a large delay if you want them to slowly fill up an area. Danger event range down here is kind of important if you plan on doing some long range ops, which, I mean, considering how forested Everon is, it's kind of hard to do. But if you want to make it to where they detect danger from longer away, you can do that down here. But the main thing that we want to do next is set up waypoints. So to do that, I'm going to show you 3 types of waypoints and kind of what they each do. And with those 3 waypoints, you'll be able to do pretty much everything you want, but you can, of course, mess with other waypoints as well. So to show you the first and most basic kind of waypoint, let's go ahead and make a little patrol that's kind of walking around the AO doing their own thing. So we're going to go down here, back to our groups panel on the resource browser. We're going to grab a sentry team here. It's just 2 guys. We're going to turn them so they're facing this way. And then we have to go make some waypoints for them so they can move around. So remember how we're down here in the resource browser? I said prefab AI, you don't want to grab those individual characters. You do, in fact, though, want to go down here to waypoints. Let me turn my camera back on. I mean, you gotta be able to see me, right? Go to waypoints, and you'll see there's already some prefab waypoints. What we're going to do is we're going to drop some AI waypoint move.ets, that's our movement waypoints, around the world, and we're just going to do it in a circle around the base, okay? So when we do that, we're going to drop one here. They're kind of dumb, so we're going to make sure that we actually follow the contours so they don't have to run into any objects. Otherwise, we'll just run into them for right now. I'm sure they're going to improve the AI with time. So we create a waypoint here, and that's called AI Waypoint Move 1. And then, of course, we're going to grab another waypoint. We're going to bring them maybe all the way over to here, waypoint 2. Okay, we did that. Of course, if we want to, we can control C that one that we just put here at this corner. We can control C it, and we can put it maybe right. See, they're going to get stuck if we try to do anything too fancy. So we're going to put them right here. That'd be 3 for them, and then 4 for them. Hopefully they'll be able to navigate through there. Should do okay with the nav mesh that's in there. Movement waypoint right next to this opening. There we go. So there we go. Movement waypoint 5. And going back here, movement waypoint 6 on the road again. So they're going to move to waypoint 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 right here. So they're going to follow these waypoints around. Now, just putting these waypoints down didn't do anything. It didn't actually assign them the waypoints. They're just waypoints that exist in the world. And like I said, we could share these between multiple groups, but I have to go back and select my group, my sentry team, and go down here to the bottom right and go static waypoints. There's waypoints that are static waypoints and spawned waypoints. At this point, I'm not exactly sure what the difference is. I believe that spawned waypoints are basically once waypoints are created through other methods like triggers or delayed creation or something like that, it will then add it to them automatically, and the static waypoints are what are on the level to begin with. That's my assumption. Tell me if I'm wrong down below. But for what we're doing right now, we're just going to click static waypoint, hit the plus sign. It's going to create one. And we have to take the name of what this waypoint is and put it in here. I should have showed you this before because it's a lot easier as you're copying and pasting, but you're going to want to rename these waypoints something easier. So like we're going to call it we're going to call it Patrol WP1, okay? I'm actually going to hit Control A, Control C, because we're going to be renaming all of these. So take waypoint 2, we're going to call that 2, 3, and you guys get the idea, right? I'm going to rename all these. Okay, so we have all of our patrol waypoints named there. So when we go back to our group here, it's very easy to just put Patrol Waypoint 1, hit plus sign. In fact, we can make 6 of these. So now there's 6. It is numbered 0 through 5. That's how programmers and engineers do it. I don't know why. So we type that. We hit tab. We hit Control V2, Control V3. Oh, no. Messing up. I'm messing up, guys. Control V, Control Waypoint 3. Hit tab. Control V, Waypoint 4. You get the picture. Okay, cool. So 1 through 6. So now when we start this mission, these guys are going to basically patrol through there. Let's go ahead and check it out. Hit our play button and here on the top left. And then we're actually going to jump straight into Game Master mode, just so that's the easiest way to witness what our AI is doing. Okay, so to go into Game Master mode, we're going to click this button here. And it brings us dun-dun into Game Master mode. We're going to go find our entities. Okay, it took me a little bit, but I found them here. I don't know why it took a while. Anyway, you can see our guys right here. We're going to hit I to get rid of the stuff. And you can see our guys right here. And they're running to their next objective. Now, you'll notice that they're running to it, because the behavior we gave them, the move waypoint, is a run waypoint, right? They're going to run between their waypoints, and that's how they're going to go. They're not going to walk. They're not going to be patrolling like you would expect. That's a different behavior tree that we ask of them. Because once again, they changed a lot of things. Things are not as hard-coded as they once were. Now we have total control over the AI's behavior tree. So we can make the AI act however we want them if we want to go down in there and actually mess with their behavior tree. Now, we don't want to do that. We want to make them just walk to patrol, right? We don't want to make them run, because this looks a little bit weird if the guys sneak up on them. Now, you see our 3 that are right here just standing there doing their own thing, right? They're just, not a cell phone in sight, living life. Anyway, one of the things going to happen when these guys get to their end, and I'm going to fast forward the video a little bit so you can see what happens when they get to their last waypoint here. Why are they running into this? Did somebody get into water? What the heck? Oh, these guys are so dumb. Okay, so we see that there's a guy here. I think his buddy drowned. I don't know. I had to help him out a little bit. But we see he got to his last waypoint, and he's just sitting there. Well, why is he just sitting there? Well, what we did is we gave him waypoints. We gave him 6 waypoints. Go here, 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 and here. And he got to the last waypoint, and he's just standing there. So what he actually needs is the cycle waypoint. If we give them the cycle waypoint, then that waypoint will cycle through other waypoints to feed into this particular group and cause them to go the direction we want. So what we're going to do is we're going to add a cycle waypoint, assign that to the group, and we're going to change these from move waypoints to patrol waypoints, because those are better for our use. So we hit escape to get out of here, and I'm going to go show you where the patrol waypoints are at. Okay, so here we are back in the world. So rather than having to place down more waypoints, which I could just go ahead and grab the patrol waypoint, I can bring it back into the world if I want, but I'm feeling lazy. Let's go ahead and just change the move waypoints we did to patrol waypoints. To do that, we're going to go over here to our hierarchy on the left side. We're going to click the patrol waypoint, and then we're going to swing over here to the right side. It says type move, but you notice AI behavior tree move to says WP_move. If I click this little button, I can change the AI behavior from the move behavior to the patrol behavior. If this doesn't show up, you just search patrol up top, and it'll come up here as well. So we're going to select WP patrol, and now that's a waypoint patrol. So now the guys will just walk to this waypoint. I'm going to do that for all 6 of these. Okay, cool. So now we have selected something random on the world. Okay, so now we've changed all these to their behavior tree is patrol. It's not that they're not move waypoints, they still are, but we modified the move waypoint to have patrol. You could not do it that way if you're worried. You can just drag a patrol waypoint and redo all of your waypoints. I don't want to do that. Now, some other things I want to show you in the waypoint as well. This completion radius is just like completion radiuses from previous versions. Basically, if I increase the completion radius, once the AI gets to within that area, they'll consider that they've touched the waypoint and they're good to go. So especially for like long distance waypoints, like where they're patrolling really far areas, you can make it pretty wide and they'll just touch the edge of it and continue on to their next one if need be. Now it's default 5. Now there's also autocomplete. I haven't messed with that too much, but this completion type is very useful. Any, all, or leader will change dramatically how they do. If you say all, make sure there's enough space in there for every single unit to come and fit into that actual circle so they can all have touched up and therefore consider it's good to go. If you select leader, that just means only the leader of all the group has to touch the point, or any is any one of them. I leave it as any, it's not that big of a deal. And then is priority is something that as you get deeper into the editing, you'll find that sometimes you need to make things priority. So once you assign something to a group and you make it priority, it's going to override anything else they're doing, even down to like taking cover or firing back. If you override it, they're going to go do it no matter what. We're just going to leave all those unchecked. So now we have our 6 waypoint patrol. Now this patrol route was kind of dumb, so we're going to fix it real fast because these AI didn't know how to handle it. Okay, so now he's going to go on the left side of the lake. Hopefully he doesn't drown or whatever when we do it. But anyway, we have all 6 of these waypoints for our patrol, but it's not actually going to be a patrol still, right? Because they're only going from 1 through 6 and then stopping. So we're going to add a new type of waypoint called a cycle waypoint. We can put this anywhere. It doesn't matter. They don't actually go to this waypoint. What this waypoint does is it's a waypoint that holds waypoints, and it just slowly clicks through them and gives them to a group. So we're going to change the name of this to patrol cycle. Okay, there we go. It's named patrol cycle. On the right side, we're going to go to cycle waypoints here. Oh yeah, behind my head again. Here we go, remove myself. Cycle waypoints here on the right side, and we're going to add 6 waypoints. So now we have 6 waypoints. And once again, we're going to grab our patrol waypoint 1, patrol waypoint 2, patrol waypoint 3, yada, yada, yada. Okay, so we've added all of our patrol waypoints in there. So what this is going to do now, when we start up, it's not actually going to work as a cycle yet because we haven't actually assigned it. What we need to do is we need to actually assign this cycle waypoint to the group, and then it will feed them the other waypoints. And the best part is when it gets to waypoint number 6, it'll feed it number 1 again. So we're going to select our group. Instead of all of these waypoints here, we're going to clear all of them out except for the first one, minus it all the way down to where it just has 1. Instead of patrol waypoint 1, we're going to call it patrol cycle. Remember, that's what we labeled ours on the left side there. Now that we did that, let's go ahead and hit play and see what they do this time. Are they still... Oh, look, now they're walking. It's just a nice little leisurely stroll because we gave them that patrol route instead of a move waypoint. Now, here's kind of a clue. The patrol waypoint's literally just an edited move waypoint that they went in and changed the speed that they're going at. But that's kind of one of the big differences between this editor and the old editor is that rather than having just drop boxes or whatever, you can really get down in the nitty gritty and you can change a lot. It makes it a little bit more complicated in the beginning, but overall, we're gonna be able to create some way better missions this way. I'm pretty stoked about it. Now, I'm gonna wait for these guys to drag along the wall, hopefully not drown. I'll show what happens when they get to that 6th waypoint. Oh my gosh, these guys are so slow. Maybe I should have left it as a move waypoint. Okay, here they come approaching that last waypoint. And what are they going to do? Are they going to stop? Oh no, we're so concerned. They're going to touch up the waypoint and they're just going to go ahead and go right back towards their first waypoint because we gave them that cycle waypoint. So that's exactly how you can do patrol cycles. You just create some waypoints, put it in a cycle waypoint, like add them into there, and then only assign that cycle waypoint to the group. Now say escape. Okay, now I'm going to show you the last waypoint type that I'm going to use during this mission. It's going to be the defend waypoint. So by default, these guys who are, oh my goodness, I'm going to fly through the wall. Okay, so by default, these guys who are sitting here are going to be staring in that direction and they'll react to contact if contact should happen. The problem is that Arma's AI, like as it always has been, is very aggressive. So once it starts taking fire, they'll take cover for a second, but then they'll eventually try to go attack whatever is shooting. Even worse off, if they're not being directly shot at, like let's say you're engaging something in the forest over here, these guys will actually leave their cover to go investigate. We don't want that. We want to keep them right where they're at. So what we're going to do is we're going to create what's called a defend waypoint. The defend waypoint basically tells the AI, hey, you can move around anywhere within this point, but don't leave this point. So to do that, we're going to go down here. We're once again in the Arma Reforger prefab waypoint in the resource browser. We're going to select defend. We're going to drop it right down here on the ground. And it's going to create a relatively huge waypoint. We're going to call this Bunker Defend 1. And it's this huge waypoint. We don't want to be quite that big. So this completion radius over here on the right side, getting rid of my head, this is basically how big the waypoint's going to be. We're going to make it like maybe a 10-meter waypoint. We can even make it smaller, maybe 7. There we go, cool. So now the AI is going to hang out in just this area. They'll defend it. They'll fight enemies that are outside of it, but they will defend this area. They'll stay there. They're not going to go anywhere. But once again, they're not going to do anything until we actually assign it to the group. Just putting it there does not do anything. We have to click on the group. We have the machine gun team selected. We're going to go over here to stack waypoints, and we're going to add our Bunker Defend 1. There we go. So now they're going to defend this area. Now, one other place where this is especially important is if you want to put any enemy AI inside a building, they love to run out of buildings, just like in Arma 3, and try to seek out thrill ride elsewhere. So as you add enemies into buildings, make sure to give them these defend waypoints into a really small area, especially like, let's say you want a sniper in a window, make it like a 0.5 meter. They stand in one spot and they don't move from it. They might take cover, they might do other stuff, but it's not as easy as just disabling pathfinding like it used to be. You want to give them a defend waypoint to keep them there. Let's go ahead and do that. We're going to add a sniper into one of the windows. Let's grab one of these front windows here. So we're going to go ahead and we're going to put a sniper in this room right here. He's hanging out with his library, okay? So once again, we're going to go to our prefabs group op4. We're just going to grab the sentry team again, and we're actually going to go over to the right side here, get rid of my camera. We're going to make this just a 1 unit team. So we hit this little button on the right side and that just deletes anything that's in it. That's what this little arrow does here. We're going to hit minus, and then we're going to change this type of character using the 2 dots, and we're going to change him into a sharpshooter. Now you can see here, here's a sharpshooter. He's got his SVD. We're going to put him right in front of the window. He's going to be looking at. This is really good when you have like churches or anything like that. He's going to be holding, man, you better not walk up right there. That's the worst place for a sniper. It's what we got though. So he's going to be right there. But like I said, once he starts hearing shooting, he's going to start running around inside this building. He might run out of it. So we have to give him another defend waypoint. So we're going to go back up to our waypoints in the resource browser, defend waypoint, drop it right there. And we're going to make this a 1 meter waypoint like this. So we're going to bring it, we're going to bring it right there. And we're going to call this, rename, Sniper Defend. And we're going to select our group, Sentry Team 1, which this, because we're getting confused already, let's rename this to House Sniper. And then static waypoints over here on the right side behind my head. Lean over. We're going to put Sniper Defend 1. Hopefully I spelled that right. So now when the shooting starts, he's going to stand right there. He's going to own anything coming out of these trees. That's what a sniper's going to be. And of course, you could do that for any more stuff. Like let's say you want to have a couple riflemen that are hanging out in the end of this area. We're going to go to our op4. I'm going to grab we'll grab another sentry team. That's the easiest one to do. You just know it's 2 guys. Turn them. We're going to make sure that they're both actually in here. There you go. It's okay. They'll face the incoming threat. So we do that, and then we're going to create another defend waypoint for them, and we're going to make it just basically the inside of this building. So they'll run around inside the building and defend it, but not much further. So we went over to the right side, your completion radius, made it 10 meters. That's still kind of big. We're going to make it maybe 8 meters. There you go. So they'll hang out in that hallway, and they'll defend it as is. We have these defenders. They're hanging outside this building. We're going to make sure to rename our defend point. We're going to call this Building Fence 1. Okay. We named that. We have to select this team, which is our Sentry Team 3. Go down here in the bottom right. Once again, move my head. Static waypoints. Fence 1. There we go. I don't know why that was so hard. Enter. So they're going to stay there. They're going to defend that building. And now we've got a sniper looking out the window. We've got some danger if they try to walk through the door. We can add some defenders to this building, maybe this outhouse or whatever. But we also added, if you remember over here, this bunker. And we want to have maybe one MG guy that's just going to hold this bunker down. So he's going to be able to look left and right, basically holding the road. Maybe actually we don't want MG, we want an AT guy. Maybe that'd be a better idea. So let's go ahead and go to our groups, op4. We're going to grab our team AT. And then, wow, that's actually way more guys than I thought it was going to be. We want to make sure that we know which one we're deleting here on the right side. We got lots of AT, so we're actually going to blank out that guy, blank out these 2 guys, delete. Okay, cool. So now we just have one AT guy for this team. We're going to use our movement tool, move him here, control down to, I think, stick him to the ground or stick him all the way into hell, I guess, and just sort of place him in there as best you can. Okay, here we are. A million years later, we got him actually just standing in the bunker. Of course, I could leave other guys laying around if I wanted to, but he's a one-man group. So we're going to go ahead and select him. We're going to rename him as my road guard, road horde. For him, we're going to have to give him another defend waypoint. Now, rather than actually dragging a waypoint in, all I'm going to do is I'm going to grab this building defense one, bunker defend one, hit Control C and Control V and paste it there because it's already kind of resized a little bit. I'm going to make it much smaller. I'm going to make it like 1, maybe we'll do 2 meters. So you can move around within it. Okay. Move that over to his little AO there. Cool. So now now that he has that, we can select him. Here's our road guard. We selected him. That's our bunker defend 2. You notice that when I copied and pasted it, it just incremented the number from 1 to 2. We're going to go ahead and select our road guard. We're going to give him his waypoint, bunker defend 2. Cool, and now he's going to stay inside that bunker, and he'll take cover as needed inside the bunker and protect himself from everyone, but he'll protect this little road. So, as you look now, what do we have? We have an MG team here. We've got this patrol that's going around the AO, very slowly walking, but they'll react to any contact and actually assault through that contact. And we've got some guys that are going to stay in the rest of the AO. I'm going to add a few more defenders just to make this a little more interesting before we move on to the next step. Okay, so here we are. I've added this rifleman squad over here, or sorry, a full squad right here, and they're set to this large blue area. That's basically the whole AO. They're going to defend anywhere within the farm, but they're not going to leave the farm to go attack. I've also shared that defense with this sneaky little sentry team over here. Ostensibly, they should be watching the approach from these woods, but really, it's just going to screw up the players because they don't expect it. But once again, they're sharing that same area, so they're not going to leave as well. That being said, these 4 individuals over here, this little rifleman team that I put together, they will leave to go investigate. Think of them like a QRF. And in fact, if I wanted to, I could just put some groups in the woods, and once the shooting started, they would come through the woods and act kind of like a QRF. But these guys don't have any waypoints associated with them, so when the shooting starts, they'll go investigate and they'll check it out. I also, within this building, sorry, it's kind of hard to see, but I added, I'm going to hit G to turn off those visualizations. I added a couple guys hanging out in this hallway in the building, so friendlies have to actually clear out the building. Sorry, I'm moving through so fast. And then right here, I kind of added one of those things that people would hate me for when we find him. Yes, our little friend, the machine gunner, standing inside a little tiny area. If they open that door, they're not going to be happy. But he's sitting there on a defend waypoint as well to defend just that little room. And then, of course, we had the gentlemen over in this area that are defending this house. So by this point, we've got a pretty decent amount of enemies. We've got probably about 20 enemies in the AO. We've got some patrolling, some static, some guys in buildings, some that'll come and investigate. Overall, I think it's a pretty interesting AO for about a squad level of guys or smaller. So if you got a group of 4, this is very doable. Now, the last thing we have to do is add in some sort of way to actually make it to where you can win the match. Now, this is where you're going to have to do a little bit of scripting, I'm sorry to say. So what we're going to do is we're going to grab one of the triggers, and we're going to basically make it to where when our players are the only ones that exist within the trigger area, aka there are no more enemies left and it's just the friendly players, it's going to trigger a script, and that script will end the game with a victory for the US. This is probably the most complicated thing we're going to do here, but stick with me. I promise you we'll get through it. Okay, so here we are in the center of our AO. Now, we're going to have to actually create our own trigger here. There's not a prefab that does what we want to do, but it's going to be relatively easy. So to do that, we're going to grab a base game entity, and the way that that happens is on the left side where we've been using this hierarchy to select our stuff, way down here on the bottom left, it says hierarchy, but there's another little tab here. If we click that tab, it's the create tab. Here's all of the basic entities that exist within the game that don't have all those components added onto it. We're going to search at the top trigger. When we do that, we're going to find this faction control trigger entity. We're just going to drag that into the world, and it's going to bring a faction control trigger entity. Now, luckily for us, this one's pretty easy to set up. We're going to go and get rid of all that stuff, and we're going to say faction trigger, and we're going to say owner faction. We're going to make this a little bigger. Key. That is, what is the side that actually owns this trigger? Now, we're going to go ahead here and put US, because if you remember correctly, we put US as the name of one of the factions, meaning everything that happens in the trigger is going to be compared to US. So the next thing it says is faction control trigger ratio method, meaning what ratio of friendly, aka the US, to enemy types within here do we have to actually have to kick off this trigger? So the ratio method currently is equals to 0.5. What that means is as long as there's an equal number of friendly troops as there are within the trigger as there are for enemy troops, then this would proc the trigger and it would end the game for us. We don't want that. We want it to where we completely have wiped out the enemies. We've cleared 100% of them off. So we're going to put that up to 1. What 1 means, and if you highlight it, it actually tells you, what 1 means is there are only friendlies present. We could also, of course, put 0, that's only enemies present. And if you wanted to go easy on your players, you say like, about 90%. But honestly, as a player, if I'm sitting there going shooty and I win and there's still enemies in the AO, that's not okay for me. So we're going to put it up to 1. And then next, we're going to put this down below where it's getting behind my head. Let me hide myself again. We're going to do trigger shape here. The trigger shape, we're going to turn into a sphere. And to know kind of what we're working with, because it's made this shape now, we're going to do draw shape. Now we're going to make sure to turn this draw shape off afterwards, because if we don't, it's going to be visible as we're actually playing. We're going to make the radius like say 50, not quite big enough. Let's make it 100. Okay, cool. So within this AO, as long as there are only allies within this sphere and no enemies, it will proc the trigger. But the problem is right now it's not actually checking the update. So once again, hiding myself, on the right side here, we're going to check this trigger activation type. We're going to go, we do really any of these at the end of the game. We'll go first change, okay? And these periodic queries means how often is it actually going to change? We're going to check 0.5 seconds. That seems pretty basic. Now, these name filter and class filters are normal trigger things. Basically, if you want a trigger to proc every time a certain thing goes in there, whether it be a player, whether it be an entity, a vehicle, I don't know, anything that would go through it, or something that's like named a certain thing, the moment it enters, it would proc the trigger. We don't want that. We want to make sure we've eliminated all the enemies. So that's why we used this faction control trigger versus just a regular trigger. But basically, we've set that up now to proc exactly when we've cleared all the enemies out. It'll proc whatever script we'd have on activation. So this is where we're going to get into scripting a little bit. Over here above my head on the right side, we're going to click this button next to script that has a little plus sign. When we do that, it's going to say only named entities can have entity script. Well, that's true for a lot of things. So let's go ahead and right click the entity over here. See, it's red because it's not a prefab, it's a base. We're going to rename this as end game trigger. Now that we've named it, we're going to click that plus sign again on the right side on script. And we're going to go to, scrolling way down here, right here, on activate. So it's going to open up another menu for us. You see we now have 3 on the bottom. It's going to be the script editor. And you see right here, it's got all sorts of stuff, but it says override void, on activate, iEntity, ENT. Now this is sort of like a C# style with some wrinkles. So if you know C#, you're going to be sitting pretty here. Luckily for us, I've already got this code somewhere else. We're just going to copy and paste it. I'm going to explain it. So I'm going to go grab it and we'll paste it in here. Okay, so I've gone and grabbed that script and we're just going to go ahead and paste it in right here. I'll try to explain in layman's terms what I know about this. But just suffice to say that if you copy and paste this exact code, which is in the link in the description box below, like I mentioned before, with all the other resources for this, if you paste this code in, I promise you it will work. But basically, this SCR base game mode is going to create this base game mode object that we had talked about before. That's what we put in the game prefab of. It's going to basically set, hey, get what our game mode is and make it this game mode. And then it's going to find faction. Okay, what's the name of the faction that's called US? And we're going to create that faction. And then it's going to say, what is the faction index? Meaning, what's the number associated with the faction? Is it 0 or 1? For us, it's going to be 1. So it's going to grab that from this faction that we did before. And then it's going to run on the game mode, the end game mode function or method, I think they're called in C#. And that end game mode requires that you give it some data. So it's game mode data, create simple, based upon this US index that we found before. So more or less, to use this end game mode function or method, it has to have this data in it for it to know who won, what to tell you when the game ends, that sort of stuff. If you didn't have this data in there, it would probably error out or it would say nobody won or something like that. So you have to actually have all the rest of this stuff. It's not just a simple end game mode. We had to put all 4 lines of this. It's probably a more efficient way to do it, but this is the way that I have. I got it from the co-op example from EXO that we'll talk about a little bit later. But suffice to say, once we put that in there, we hit Control S and we save that. So now this trigger should proc the moment that there are only friendlies within the AO to end the game in the US's favor. Let's say that you clicked out of that window or for some reason you have to edit the script again. On the right side here under script, you'll see it now says on activate. You can click this little edit button to get back in there, by the way. That's just a little aside in case you ever need to get back in there. So at this point, we should be ready to test to make sure that our whole mission is working. We should be able to spawn in, some AI will be running around. If we kill those AI and walk ourselves into this area, we should be able to win. So let's go ahead and test it out. Okay, so we're going to go ahead and we're going to go straight in as Game Master. We're going to go find our AO by selecting our guys and flying over there. Oh, and you see we left that big red in there. We got to make sure to turn that off. But here's all our enemies in the AO currently. So if we put an AI in here, hitting tab, and let's just add a friendly infantry squad. They'll go here, they'll start to fight, right? They'll probably get chewed up pretty bad. These guys are shooting the crap out of this side thing right here. Not the best. Oh, look, these guys are going to go engage in hand-to-hand combat. But you notice that the moment our friendly AI entered the AO, it did not just end the game, right? Because we have to actually destroy all of the enemy AI. So let's do that by selecting them, and you hit end, and that kills them, right? If we end all of these guys... Yeah, you're winning, US. That's how the US does it. We cheat. Once we do that, look at... Session end. It says the game had ended and you were not part of any faction because we hadn't actually joined. But you see the American flag. The U.S. won because the U.S. overran all the enemies there. We made our mission. You can spawn in, you can kill all the enemies, stay in the AO, and you win. That's it, guys. We made the mission. Now, the next step is adding a couple extra things that are going to make it work better in multiplayer, and then actually adding all the extra stuff we have to do to make it be able to be published to then attach to your server and be able to play in multiplayer. Let's get on that next step. Okay, so here we are back in the editor. Of course, let's go ahead and select our endgame trigger and get rid of that shape. Right here behind me, draw a shape. Click that on the right side. And now it's not going to draw that shape anymore. So there are a couple more managers that we have to add that make the game run a little bit more smoothly, especially in multiplayer. So the first one that we're going to find is going to be the radio manager. It should be a prefab right here. We're just going to go ahead and put it with our other managers right there. Boom. Okay. And don't need to change anything in there. It just has to be there for the radio system to work. So next up, we're going to grab the tag manager. That's basically just going to show other people's tags, I believe, is what that one actually is for. Next up is going to be the chat manager, so people can actually chat. So we're going to search chat. We're going to grab campaign MP chat entity, and that should work. You can obviously modify what the names of the chats and that sort of stuff if you want, but that's all good there. So now the players can actually chat. Okay, the next one's going to be kind of a weirdly named one called World PP. Don't get weird. We're just going to search generic world PP in there. This is basically going to have all of these different visual effects, like the God rays and all this stuff that just makes the game look better. It's also the spot where you can change like your HDR, your rain effects. You can do all sorts of stuff like that. We're just going to grab the default one so the game looks good. And then there's one more, the environmental probe, which I believe is just ENV. This environmental probe is basically going to give us, I'm not sure why it has this visible area there, but it's globally placed, and basically this is going to allow the world to just look better, I guess is a good way to put it. We can basically make it to where it renders certain things. It's, I think, mostly for like reflections and things like that. The game's just going to look better once we do that. Okay, and lastly, if you want to have fog or any sort of haze, search fog, and you can grab a fog haze here, and that will pretty dramatically change the way the game looks. Now, I don't believe it actually does anything until you get in there. I haven't messed with fog too much. If you make it, I believe, more dense. Yeah, okay, oh yeah, so it works. So if you want this to be kind of a cool, I'm going to leave it like this, kind of cool, kind of hazy. And that's basically all the managers we just added. Basically, it's just the last step to make it look good. Let's review what we've done in the mission before we move on. First off, it's been a while. Let's go ahead and save our world. Wow, I can't believe we didn't crash that whole time without saving. So we created a world. We then made a sub scene from that world called Tutorial World. We added some layers. In those layers, we added the game mode, the basic game mode, some basic managers, and then we added our spawns for our players. Now we had to go back to the game mode and change the type of spawn, if you remember, because we had immediate spawn. We wanted that little menu, so we added and changed some components. Next up, we went to the area of ops, and we added some terrain features to make it more interesting. And then we added AI. We added AI by adding them via groups rather than trying to add individual AI. And then once we added those groups, we gave them waypoints to do things. Movement waypoints made them run, so we added patrol waypoints to make them walk. And to make that circular patrol route, we changed it over to a cycle waypoint. The cycle waypoint had those patrol waypoints shoved into it, and then we assigned that cycle waypoint to the patrol group that we wanted to have patrol. Lastly, the guys that we didn't want running around willy-nilly, we put those guys in defend waypoints. So they would stay within their defense area and not move around outside of that. That especially helped for the guys that were inside the buildings so that they wouldn't just run out of the buildings or move away from the windows that we really wanted to keep them in. Once we did that, we went in and we added a trigger. We used the faction control trigger because that was the easiest way for us to basically say, once you clear out enemies, you're good to go. Now we could have used a regular trigger and added a filter on it to where once one of the players that's US walks into it, they win. So therefore maybe have it towards like a patrol where they have to go from point to point to point. And once the guys actually reach their last point, then they win. You could have done that. We didn't do that. We made it to where you have to eliminate 100% of the enemies within the AO. Lastly, we went back and we added in all the very beautiful effects modules, if you will, into the managers to make it look nice. Okay, let's go ahead and look at what it looks like when we play it. The best way to do that is to actually go to this play button that we had before. We use the drop-down menu next to it and do play in full screen. It's going to take a little bit longer to load, but I think it's going to give us a better view of what it actually looks like to play. Okay, so here we are. We're going to select US Army. We're going to continue. We're going to make ourselves a sniper. We're going to select our spawn point, our field spawn, and we're going to deploy. Okay. Oh, looks like our fog didn't really work. Well, like I said, I don't really understand how the fog works. That'll be something to play with. Am I gonna take it out of the thing? No. Oh, already taking shots. AI were very ready for me. I think those are the guys that are in the middle, so we're gonna go ahead and see if we can't sneak around the side here. Oh, he's right here. These are the guys rushing us. Remember we said there was a couple guys that would rush us? Okay. So we got one guy down. We're approaching our building. We gotta be careful because over the side here. Here's the road. Where's the other guy that was supposed to patrol down this road? Oh, taking hits. We'll grab our smoke grenade and smoke out. Okay, there's our sniper guy that we were looking for. Maybe we stayed in the window. Ow. Ow. Well, I went down. So that's our mission. Our mission works. We're going to go ahead and we're going to go back in here. Dude, this game looks so beautiful. We're going to actually go into Zeus mode or Game Master mode. Oh my goodness, look at him pushing me. Remember I said that? So here's the other guy that was patrolling, and here's the 4 group that pushed. Notice everyone else stayed. That's perfect. We're going to go ahead and we're going to murderize them, murderize him, murderize everyone else. Okay, now everyone else is dead, but we didn't win. Why? Well, because we're not in the AO. We have to have friendlies inside the AO to control it. So once we do that, we're going to run to it, and look at that. The U.S. Army has won. Thanks for joining. We have a mission, guys. It works. Okay, let's go finish it so you can publish it and go play with your friends. Okay, so we're actually now done inside the world editor. We're going to make sure to go to File, Save World. We already did. We haven't made any changes since then. And we're just going to close it. I know you've been in there for a while. That's a great picture to have in the background. If you made it this far, make sure to tell me in chat that you just saw this guy leaning on the wall. Okay, so here we are in the main window now. There's a couple other things that we have to add to be able to publish this. One of the things is going to be, we created a world that we put objects in, right? And various layers, stuff like that. Now we have to actually tell Arma that there is a mission you can play in that world. So what we're going to do is we're going to go over here to a Reforger co-op tutorial on the left side. We're going to go down to the bottom left, go to Create. New folder, we call this Missions. Now, this is case sensitive, and most of them make it capitalized. Worlds is usually not capitalized, but Missions is capitalized. I don't know why. We're going to open up that folder, and inside it, we're going to go down to Create. We're going to go to Config File. We're going to click that, and what are we going to name this? We're going to name this Co-op Tutorial. Okay, so we named it Co-op Tutorial. Now, it's going to say choose a class. Basically, what type of config are you making? Okay, we're going to scroll down here to find SCR Mission Header. So we select SCR Mission Header. It should make the config for us. We're gonna double click it, and then we have some fields to fill out. So for the world, we have to go over here to the right side and hit the little dot, go into our Reforger Co-op Tutorial World, tutorial world.ent, and click OK. So there we go. Now we have that set up. Next, we're gonna name it. We're gonna call this, name of the mission is gonna be Co-op Tutorial for YouTube. Okay, the author, that's me, Useless Fodder. Don't you forget it. Okay, so here's one of the areas that's gonna be a little bit confusing. So this path, basically what it is how is the server going to find this configuration file to know where the mission is, if that makes sense. So we're going to go missions / and then the name of this file, coop tutorial.cnof. Okay, so that's the actual path to this file. For description, that's gonna be the description of the mission. So let's go ahead and put co-op, we'll call it basic co-op mission.
Reinforcements dropping in.
I did not expect that. Somebody just subscribed to YouTube. Hey, this is a good opportunity. If you've been this far, make sure to subscribe down below. Decide to click the like button on our video if it's helped you at all. I mean, I put a lot of time into it. I've recorded for about 2 hours now. I'm not sure how long the video will be when we get to the end of it. But if you gained value from this, I ask that you click that thumbs up button. It does get it in front of more people. And of course, subscribing to get more awesome Arma tutorial content, Arma Ops, and of course other hardcore shooters. And if you have questions to ask me, consider joining the Discord, discord.gg/uselessfodder. Link in the description box below. Okay, let's get back to it. Okay, so basic co-op mission made during my tutorial on... That took me a long time to type, I don't know why. For details, we're gonna put basically a detailed description of the mission, move into the nearby farm and clear all Russians. Okay, game mode, we're gonna call it co-op. Player count, there's not really a max, we'll put up to 32. And we're gonna leave everything else the same, and we're gonna save this. Now, there are 3 points here: the icon, the loading screen, the preview image. Right now, as of the time of this recording, the 21st of May, there is an issue. If you try to save this as like a packed file, which we'll do in a second, it's actually going to error out and it will never be able to bundle. We have to put our own images in the loading screen, preview image, and icon. So the way that I did this is I just loaded in Zeus for my Operation Equine Lightning, which is one of the first co-op missions on the workshop, by the way. Go play it. It should be fun. Give it a thumbs up on there. What I did is I just loaded into the world and took some pictures and put it in there for the preview image, loading screen, and icon. So let's go ahead and do that. Okay, here we are. And then I just hit I to turn off stuff. And then I just hit my default screenshot button, which I believe is F12 for Steam. Or if you have NVIDIA, you can do Alt-Z and it'll tell you how to take a screenshot. We'll just take a screenshot. Of course, you can do a lot more if you want to go into Arma Vision, but I don't really care for this. It's just a tutorial mission. So we're going to go ahead and hit Alt F1 there. Not Alt F4, it'd be something different. Okay, and hit escape. And then what I did is I opened that in Paint. Okay, and then just drag it into Paint. Now we have to resize this image because otherwise it's going to be way too big. We're going to basically make it down to 25% of what it was. That's a little small. Of course, you can do a little bit of cropping and stuff like that. So I think actually 33 is what we want. 33 should work. Okay, then we're going to save as and call it thumbnail because I'm a YouTuber. So we're going to call it thumbnail. Don't save it in the actual folder where you're saving all these files that you work with. Just go ahead and save it in your downloads or on your desktop or something like that, somewhere else. Okay, cool. Once we're back in the main Workbench area, we're going to go back to our Reforger co-op tutorial. We're going to hit create new folder. We're going to call it images. Some people call it art. I don't think it matters, but if you have any issues, go ahead and do the other one. And then once we select that, we're going to select it here. We're actually just going to go in and drag that file right into here. And when we do that, it's going to create two files for us. It's going to bring the PNG in. It's also going to create this EDDS file. This EDDS file is exactly what we need for here. We can actually just drag it in there into all three of these, okay? And then hit Control S. What we've done is we basically just taken that picture and we set it as the file that's going to look for when we go to pack this, when we actually go to publish it on the workshop. Okay, now the last thing to do is to go in and publish this to the workshop. So the way we're going to do that is we're going to go to the Workbench up here in the top left, and we're going to go ahead and click Log In. If you're not currently logged in, you have to log in. And we're going to click Publish Project. Hey guys, Future Fodder here. The servers were down last night, so I couldn't actually publish while I was doing the initial recording, so we're going to cover this right now on the second day, right in the middle of my edit. So basically, on this Publish Project page, what we're going to do is first we're going to bundle, and then we're going to publish it. So on here, we're going to have to give it a project name. It should have been whatever we called in the very beginning of creating our mod. The working directory, we're going to make sure to click that little button there. We're going to go find the actual working directory, which for me, I'm going to do this off screen so you guys don't know my secrets. Okay, so I found it here in my Downloads Reforger Co-op tutorial. Select that folder. It's going to grab everything in that folder when it bundles, so make sure you select the right folder. So for this working directory, I actually selected the wrong folder. We have to actually go, instead of going into drilling down into the actual Reforger Co-op tutorial, you have to go to the folder above it, and it's going to find the actual thing that's named after the same project name. So for me, that's just my downloads. For the preview image, you're going to click this little folder here. You're going to go into your images. You're going to select that thumbnail that we had from before. You can add more screenshots if you want. Basically, that's going to be when they're doing a preview in the workshop, they can click through all your screenshots. I'm just putting one in there. For category, you're going to go ahead and select scenarios to SP and MP because technically it works in both. There's no reason why you couldn't play it single player. Tags, I would put co-op, MP. I'm going to put example as well, just in case people look at that. For version, it's going to be 1.0.0. Every time you update it, it's going to change that version number. Visibility. So visibility, there are 4 options. There's public, unlisted, private, and test. All I understand about this is that public, everyone can see it. Private, only you can see it. Unlisted, I don't believe actually works right now, and I'm not sure what test does. I think basically it allows you to bundle it without actually pushing it. We're going to leave it as public because obviously we want everyone to see this. Now for the summary and the description, you're more or less going to put the same things that you put up here before, the description and details. So basically, I'm just going to type in the same stuff I had there, and I'll see you on the backside. Okay, cool. And there we have it. I have my summary description. All the information is in there. So now what we do is we're going to bundle it, and that's basically going to put it in a zip file so that when we publish it, it will then push it to the servers. And then we're just going to click bundle, and it should zip it. Okay, creating bundle is successful. Excellent. Click OK. You can actually go into your folder and find the bundle.zip. That's all well and good. If you get an error that looks like this one here, failed to load metafile of mission config image when you try to bundle, What that means is that the images that you used are either too big or you didn't change it from the default. So make them a little bit smaller, maybe 25% from that screenshot instead of 33%. And then try to bundle again. It's just because of those images. You can see here I'm in the official Arma Enfusion Mission Makers channel, and then it's in a pinned message. It's like one of the first pinned messages explains what to do if you get this error. So make sure to just follow that. And then all you gotta do is click the publish button. And there you have it. Publishing successful. This is now out on the workshop for anyone to see. In fact, you can go check right now and you can download it if you want to. Now, I'm going to go show you how you can actually go and test this in game. So let's go over there. Okay, so here we are in the main game. If I go down to workshop and I go to recently added, we'll be able to see what we just put up, the Reforger co-op tutorial. Let's go ahead and download that. Once we download it, we can go over to our downloaded section and we see it appears right here. So if I want to test this, I can actually click it here. And then down below, it's going to have this scenario. Remember when we did that path? Man, this music's really loud. Remember when we did that path for the scenario? Well, there's the path right there. So we want to play in single player. We just go ahead and click it right here. I double clicked it, or you can go down to the bottom right and hit play. And it's going to go ahead and load the scenario. This is one way to test it. Or if you just download any single player ops, you can play that way as well. But of course, this is not how you would load it to do it on a server. That's going to be a separate video, and I'll show you how to do that. There's also a Wiki entry over at the Bohemian Interactive's Wiki that explains the full thing. And I think there'll probably be some videos out by the time this hits as well. Lastly, I want to show you a couple of the files that get made. I'm going to show you in my other mods, as I can't bundle this one, unfortunately, right now due to servers being down. So this is for my other mod that I made earlier, the Equine Lightning. Here, you can see that we had a thumbnail image, and then I had a worlds thing, but then I just bundled them. Once it's bundled, it'll have a variety of things. Now this right here, the addon.gprog, I don't know if I can make that any bigger. That's going to be an important file for you. It's not going to be openable in the beginning, but just double click it and then select Notepad. What that's going to do is that's going to give you this ID and GUID as well as the title and the dependencies. These are things you're going to actually need once you want to run this mission. So I just want to let you know, once you bundle that addon.gprog will have all that information inside the bundle. It's zipped it up, right? And it'll be right there. This GUID is basically the ID of your mod. If anywhere it asks for IDs for mod, that's what you're going to want, especially when it goes to downloading on servers. Okay, you also have the opportunity to add in this server data.json file. I don't know if it's necessarily required, but this gives all the information that your players are going to need for the server. And I would recommend going into the link in the description below for the resources and basically just copying the stuff out of this and changing it for yours. The ID will be that GUID that I just showed you. The name will be the name from there as well. And then underneath revision, make sure you match the version number that you've currently published. If you had dependencies, put those in here. And then under the scenarios tab, this is going to be important for those people on the servers. When they look in your mod, they're going to want to find this information right here on how to actually load it. This is what they're going to put in their server, and they're going to want to know what the name of that particular mission is. So basically, it's going to copy and paste that in there. Once again, at this time, I don't think this is essential, but saving this file into yours would be a good idea. And it will be in the basic co-op mod that's in the resources below. Now, the whole point of what I'm trying to do today, guys, and I guess I should have said this up front, I'm hoping that if you follow the way through this, you're committed, and I appreciate that. But what you can do rather than recreate all this from start is just go to the resource link down below, grab all the files that we just built together, and then just modify that project to be whatever co-op mod you want, because it's all basically set up for you. I didn't want to tell you up front because I didn't want you to take the easy route, but this is the easy route, okay? Now, I've got a few thank yous that I really want to put out there. First off is going to be EXO. He's one of the Bohemian Interactive devs, but he created an awesome co-op example mission that we've been digging through to really understand sort of how all these systems interplay. So thank you, EXO. Next up's going to be Zeal, who comes from the mission making channel in the Arma official servers. You'll see him in there. He's very active. He made an awesome mission called AR Night Ops. Highly recommend you play it. It's awesome. I've learned a lot from him. In fact, he just messaged me, giving me a few more hints. So super cool dude. Make sure to add him and say thanks if you watch this tutorial, because a lot of what I did in here, I learned from him. And lastly, a guy named Herbie, who also hangs out in that same channel. He made this awesome guide on GitHub for how to get started creating mission and finishing mission. I followed a lot of his steps the first time I went through making my own Operation Equine Lightning. Super cool dude. Really has a great tutorial here. I'll put a link down below if you prefer prefer to go step by step through it. Super awesome guy. He'll answer any of the questions that you have in the mission making Discord. So I highly recommend you do that. I also have a lot of other people to thank from the FOD squad, Aussie Merc, Bacon, Oreos, Hoodle Doodle, all those guys did a lot to really help me. Now, if you want more information on tips or extended stuff, on Twitter, I have this awesome thread that I've been building over the last, basically since the game came out. You can find it on my Twitter. It's my pinned post, and it's got a whole bunch of great links and information to GitHubs and BI wikis. I'm going to put this video in it. Basically, anyone who posts interesting and useful stuff, I find it, grab it, and put it on this. This is the big old Twitter thread for all the information. So definitely go check that on my Twitter, twitter.com/uselessfodder. You can find it on my pinned thread. While you're there, maybe consider giving me a follow. If you guys enjoyed this and found it useful, thank you so much for sticking around this long. Please consider giving me a thumbs up on YouTube, subscribing, sharing it with your friends, sharing it in Discord so people are like, I don't know how to make missions. This is the way to do it. I hope that it's been helpful to you. Hope I covered all my bases. If there's anything that's wrong or changed since you watched the video, I ask that you put it down in the comments down below. And if you want to come talk to me, come meet us in our Discord. There's a link in the description. It's discord.gg/uselessfodder. I'd love to try to help you in our Discord. And of course, the Arma mission making Discord is great. If you found a lot of value in this and you want to help keep these tutorials going, help keep the lights on, I do have a Patreon, patreon.com/uselessfodder. For as little as $2 a month, you can help assist me in getting more content out. Right now, I'm trying to hire an editor. That's my next goal. I only need about $19 more per month. But at the $5 level, you get access to some cool background stuff that happens, as well as early access to all our ops. If you do the $10 level, then you get access to the full unedited versions of these videos. So I'm going to upload literally the full thing with me effing around. I think I picked my nose a couple times, as well as all of when we do, especially gameplay ops, and I play with people like Karma Cut and Control Pairs, those sorts of guys. You get to see all the banter, all the behind the scenes stuff for that. Also, there's specialized ops that we do for Arma 3 and eventually for Reforger once per month that are just exclusive to those members. Right now, it's the $5 and $10 members. As we get full up, we might move it up to the $10 tier, but for right now, for as little as $5 a month, you get an extra really focused, cool op. And then, of course, the $25 level, that's one guy has done that. Thank you so much, Doreen, if you're watching. I really appreciate it. During this whole talk, I should have had the thank you scrolling by. And if you guys enjoyed this video, definitely check out one of those other ones that I guess will be over on that side. Thanks. Useless Fodder, out of here. Bye, guys.